Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you guys can all be here and join us in the wind tunnel. It's a little chilly. I'm Melissa Miller-Young. I'm the team leader for the Women Connect for Good Foundation, and I am pinch hitting today for Dr. Nancy O'Reilly. At Women Connect for Good, our work centers on empowering women and advancing gender equality. We do this by supporting, amplifying, and funding initiatives that prepare women to lead. Through a growing network of strategic partnerships, we invest in programs that break down barriers, create opportunities, and drive change. I have my emotional support notes up here too. So, whether it's funding organizations, supporting leadership development, or connecting with partners to collaborate in new ways, our focus is simple. We just want to equip women with the skills, tools, and resources that they need to thrive. But we all know that the world is changing fast. And so our focus is no longer just on women. We also need to focus on the next generation. The gains that we fought for, the equality, inclusion, and opportunity, are increasingly under pressure, and the urgency of this work has never felt greater. The gains that, in this moment, one thing has become very clear. If we are not actively engaging and empowering the next generation of leaders, we risk not only stagnation, but the very real possibility of going backwards. Because we are living through a moment of extraordinary transition. Over the coming decades, we'll see one of the largest transfers of wealth, influence, and leadership in history. But the next generation, what's exciting is they're not waiting for that. They're stepping up to lead right now. They're here. They're in this room. So they're stepping forward with new ideas, new energy, new solutions. They're leading movements. They're making plans. They're shaping the conversations, organizing communities, and using digital platforms to mobilize and come together in ways that are foreign to us, but are very exciting. It's true. They are foreign to us. I admit it. Yes. But that's why we launched Connect for Impact. It's a leadership program for young women ages 16 to 20 who are ready to step up, speak out, and lead. But we are not alone in recognizing this shift and embracing the next generation. Today's conversation is about what it truly looks like to build intergenerational partnerships. Not just supporting young leaders, but we trust them and we listen to them and we co-create the future with them. So that's why I'm super excited to have on the stage with me today. See, I told you, emotional support notes. I'm the one who writes the questions and the notes. I'm not the one who delivers the wit usually. I'm the girl behind the curtain. So today on the stage, I'm so fortunate to have Sophie Grégoire Trudeau. She is a best-selling author, global speaker, mental health advocate, and her work focuses on emotional well-being, resilience, human-centered leadership, and she's brought these conversations to stages all around the world, including the United Nations. Then we have Ella Robertson McKay. She is the executive director of One Young World, an organization that has supported and connected over 20,000 young leaders across more than 190 countries. And we have Chantale Zuzi, founder of Refugee Can Be, a survivor of war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Chantale has transformed her journey into a powerful mission, creating education, mentorship, and leadership opportunities for girls in refugee camps in Uganda. Please join me in welcoming them. Thank you all so much for being here and for the work that each of you is doing to shape what leadership looks like today and in the future. As we've been talking about, it's a moment of both uncertainty and possibility. And what's striking is that this next generation isn't waiting to be invited into leadership. They're stepping in. So what gives you hope about the future that they're building? We'll start with you.
That's such a small question. So I'm a mom of 3 kids, 12-year-old boy, 17-year-old girl, and 18-year-old boy. And I'm going to start talking about hope by asking you a question. So who here feels that you have empathy and compassion for other people in your life? Raise your hand. Okay, look around you, just blah, 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 okay? The whole room. Who here feels that there's so much uncertainty in your life and in the world? Well, you didn't have to raise it if that's not how you feel. So from a neurobiological perspective, because that's my area of interest and passion, and I'll tell you why and why it's related to hope, this is a recipe for depletion. Who here feels that their plates are overflowing and feel depleted? Who sleeps well? We love you, hate you. Perimenopause, it changes everything. So what do you think is the first thing humans pick up on when you meet them? So what's the first thing you would pick up on me if I walked on stage? You're not allowed to say hair or shiny things, okay?
Your smile. You look tired.
I didn't sleep great, thanks. Oh, okay. So you were bang on. That's exactly it. So she said smile. Some people will say energy, some people will say, wait, right? It's facial expressions. So us humans, as right here, right now, you have a radar going on that you know nothing about because it's not in your conscious level of living. And you're constantly, with your 200,000-year-old brain, trying to stay away from danger, no saber-toothed tiger, no thank you, and seek comfort, right? So if you have a tiger in your bedroom, tell me more. So our brains are constantly trying to get away from danger. But here's the trick, and this is what I write about, but the rhythm at which hope and trust is being lost. There is an erosion of trust in the world. You were talking about, oh no, somebody else was talking about yesterday about Mark Carney, my prime minister right now, yes. I mean, I knew the former prime minister a little bit better, but he says,
Tiger what?
oh my God. So, ladies, come on. Love mischievous people. So, our capacity to regulate ourselves has been hijacked by loneliness, by erosion of trust, by distancing between human beings, by division, by polarization. And I interview a dehumanization expert in my book, Closer Together, David Livingstone-Smith, who says hatred stems from a deep need for connection that never took place. Right? Hatred stems for a deep need for connection that never took place. So very quickly, when we talk about trauma, people are like, I don't have trauma. Everybody has some sort of trauma. But the difference between trauma and suffering, so suffering is part of the human condition, emotions won't kill us, but the suppression of those emotions, the keeping in of those emotions, is the difference between suffering and trauma. So suffering, human being, all good. Trauma, what's the difference between both? What do you think it is between both? Go ahead.
Suffering goes away. Trauma is more long-lasting.
So a human emotion lasts 90 seconds in the body. Absolutely true. But trauma is when the human emotion is stuck somewhere and there's a constriction in the body, whether it's physiological or psychological. It goes together. Our immune system, we now know, and our emotional system do the same thing. They have the capacity to push what is not good for us and keep what's good in. So when Chasista, yesterday, did I pronounce it right? Yes. When you said yesterday that in the awful incident that happened in the assault, you were angry, that's actually very, very, very normal. And most of us women are taught to not express healthy anger. So we constrict from the inside, and that can be trauma. Everybody thinks that trauma is only something bad that happened to you, and that's completely true, and we have so many examples in this room. But it's also something that didn't take place that you needed, and that didn't take place. And most people don't talk about either or. And that causes a constriction. So to answer your question directly, from a neurobiological perspective, we can no longer bypass our capacity to adapt to abnormal living circumstances in our democracies. Because if the erosion of trust starts within our own bodies, because most of us are dysregulated, we have one autonomic nervous system and we have a sympathetic branch, which is your alert mode and action mode and totally normal, and your parasympathetic branch, which is your rest and digest. More than 50% of us in this room, and almost data is showing right now, in America, 50% are in their sympathetic nervous system for too long. And this causes a lot of inflammation, a lot of mental health issues, and we're pathologizing all of these conditions that are not really sickness. They are responses of the body to trauma and abnormal living circumstances. So this is why people will hold on to false hope instead of no hope. So when you think of systems that trigger your fear and that trigger your insecurities, they give you a sense of belonging. So this is what we have to be extremely discerning on, is how to create real hope from a place of regulation, of emotional literacy, and psychological safety. Because without safety, there's nothing.
Nice. How do you feel that impacts the younger generation stepping up to lead more or differently than it does the rest of us?
Is this for me? Because I find that she could answer that question so well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, yes, let's...
I love what Sophie said about hope, and there was a famous man in America who spoke about hope. I think hard to remember now. And unfortunately, what we've learned, and excuse me, I'm British, so I cuss a little. But hope is a strategy. Hope is great, but we need action. We need a plan. And what we do at One Young World is we find young leaders who are people like Chantale, like Chessie, who give us hope. And I think the reason why One Young World as a nonprofit has managed to exist is because I think all of you probably know a young person who gives you hope for the future. And those young people deserve more than being told, oh, you give me hope. My generation messed it up. You'll have to sort it out. They need more than that. They deserve it and they need more. Otherwise, we're going to repeat the same cycle. And so what we do at One Young World is we bring young leaders from every single country in the world. So Venezuela, Vietnam, Vanuatu. We try and get young leaders from the Vatican. They have a little bit of a different definition of young over there, but every single country. Because of what Sophie said about the need for connection. It is impossible to not care about climate change when you've met someone who's lost their house to sea level rise. It is impossible to go, well, that war's over there, and people like that, well, they kill each other over there. When you meet people who've come from a refugee camp from Congo, your whole worldview changes, and the empathy that you create is not just a hypothetical empathy, it's a human connection. And that's really what we aim to do at One Young World. I was so proud that Ilwad's here. Ilwad came to One Young World 13 years ago. Woo! And I believe we were her first international speaking opportunity. She came to the One Young World Forum. She spoke to 2,000 young leaders. And everything she's done since then has been off her own back. But I think with our support, she really believed, I can do this. Look at the reaction I'm getting. Look at the community I'm able to create. I can do this. I can do more. And someone said to me yesterday, 13 years ago, how old were you guys then? And I was like, I was a fetus, and Ilwad was 1 month old. But it's been 13 years of working together, and look at all that Ilwad's gone on to achieve. And all of our young leaders can do that, and will do that, and we need them to. Mm-hmm. We absolutely need them to. And so what gives me hope is that conferences like this and gatherings like this, 10 years ago, people really weren't as interested in talking about youth. And certainly they weren't having young leaders come and speak and engage with such senior leaders as yourselves. And so it gives me hope that people are interested in not just patting young people on the head, giving them a thumbs up, sticking them on a social media channel somewhere, but really engaging, writing a check, being a mentor, not just for one Zoom session, but for a long period of connection. And that really does give me hope. So thank you for the hope that you've all given me so far here in Santa Barbara.
Thank you. Chantale, let's check in with you. What gives you hope about this next generation and the future that they're building?
Thank you. I think hope is a big word. For me, it's the ability of young people to keep building and keep dreaming, even after their world is upside down. That is some of the things that give me hope. The other thing that gives me hope is keep looking at my mom's eyes. When I was 13 years old, actually I was 12 years old, coming back from school, I told my mama, I don't see the purpose of going to school, I can't see. And she told me for the first time in my life, because in my culture, we don't look older people in the eye, we just talk to them. And this was the first time she told me, look at me in the eye. You have the opportunity I didn't have, and I want you to know that, you can learn differently, you can be different, and what I see in you is what I didn't have the chance to become. And so I think about that when, I go back to the same refugee camp where I lived as a child, and I meet with this young woman, Lauren, and she has lost everything. She lost her parents, she lost her home, and she's 14 years old, and she told me that she want to be a doctor. And to see her keep dreaming in such a very difficult situation give me so much hope to see that she didn't lose her dreams. She kept dreaming, she kept hoping. And so unfortunately, my mother was killed in the war in the Congo, but her hope did not die, because I see it in every single girl that I met within the refugee camp. So that is what gave me hope. Yeah.
Staying with you for just 1 minute longer, Chantale, what have your own experiences with girls like this young woman taught you about just the power that young people have to create their own solutions when going through something like this?
I think the power comes from the resilience that they have to keep dreaming, to keep hoping for a better future. And I still remember even I myself living in the refugee camp and thinking about, where is my next meal gonna come from? Education is not available. It's a luxury to go to school 1 meal a day. And what kept me going was, I saw the injustices around me, and I said, I want to be someone who will come back and, change this. I don't want to see this. And I think, keep... I think sometimes injustices around you give you the courage and the hope to actually want to do something about it. And that's what I see in young people today. Like, we've lived through so much, like COVID, and the world's breaking every single day. And so, and then we are told that we are the future. And how do you? Yes. It's really hard, because how do you tell a young girl in a refugee camp who have lost everything that she's the future, and where is that future, and who is there to build that future with her? So I hope I answer your question.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, Sophie, this question is for you. What do young leaders see differently when it comes to global problems? I mean, do you think that they perceive some of these issues differently than we do?
Your second word that you used, perception, is exactly on point. I'm going to bring it back to the eye gazing, and I'll tell you why. And when you said that you finally looked, when your mother said, look at me in the eye, right, to tell me this. So anybody who breastfed here? Okay. So when a baby is breastfeeding, the distance between the breast and the eyes of the mother is the distance for regulation. So just the dilation of the pupil and the co-regulation that happens there leaves kind of like a neurobiological symphony in the brain of the infant. And it leaves somehow a relationship of trust or distrust, depending on the environment, the mother, the state of the mother, and what kind of in utero life the fetus had. So here we go. If I had come here today with a neutral face on, it's difficult for me to do, but okay. And you're in your sympathetic nervous system because more of 50% of the population is depleted, overwhelmed, too stressed. Because your neurobiology wants to protect you, you could interpret my neutral face as aggressive or threatening. Now bring this to the state of the world. Whether you've been in a war, conflict, torn country, whether you're in a high school with a shooting, whether you're in a household with domestic abuse, whether you're being bullied online, whatever it is, we can't hijack that neurobiology. So Todd Rose from the United States wrote a book on collective illusion. And 85% of what we consume on social media is produced by 10% of users. And those 10% of users do not represent the majority. So the big messages that are repeated for the most amount of time are the ones that we believe to be the voice of the majority. Wrong. Collective illusion. So how do we raise a generation to discern what is real and what is not? And who talked about yesterday here on stage the great age of displacement, especially internally. Like self-knowledge is a human right, but we don't even have access to basic educational tools. We learn geography, we learn mathematics and languages, but we don't learn how our own bodies function and how to regulate ourselves as human beings and how to receive the opportunities that are presented to us. And youth has inherently, viscerally a capacity to dream, imagination. Somebody talked about moral imagination yesterday. If you're dysregulated and you're in your stress mode, moral imagination kind of like is like thrown out the window, right? So because we're such in survival mode, we need to be able to give our youth the most tools possible, and this is why it's my dream to start centers of emotional literacy and psychological regulation everywhere, because it shouldn't be a luxury to be able to learn how you function. And it would change how we receive stress, how we adapt to changing circumstances, and I'm super hopeful. Like knowing all this, I'm still hopeful because I've met human beings across this planet on this stage right now that are changing things for the better. And we don't have the luxury of not being hopeful, right? And we got to think about all the people who don't have the hope for very understandable reasons. And we tend to divide each other. I mean, even I, who was, on the co-political path and looking at other political systems that divided, that polarized, and their techniques are working because they focus on depression, blame, and paranoia. Depression, blame, and paranoia. You look at a state of a person, you confirm, so sorry you're going through this. This is how it starts. Look at you, man, poor you, right? And you're 1.5, you lost your job, whatever. I'm just using it as an example. Then blame. It's not your fault, it's her fault. She left you, whatever. Or that immigrant came in, took your job, I'm telling you. And finally, I'm telling you, everybody's taken over. These women, they're going to change the whole landscape, or these people from this other country are ruining your life. It works because it validates people's pain. So hope is built on human beings feeling seen and safe, whether they think like you or not.
Taking that one more level, how can we give this generation the skills and the tools that they need to protect their mental health moving into this work?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to start answering? Well, it goes back to the emotional literacy and psychological work that we did, that psychological safety work that actually we tried that yesterday. Who was at the Yoga Nidra session? Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying here that practicing yoga will save the state of the world. But what I'm saying, well, it will imagine if more leaders practice it, trust me, things would go better. And I've met leaders from across this world, and I can tell from a facial expression where the dysregulation or the regulation happens. What?
That was uncanny.
I didn't change my hair color in half a second. So it is not as complicated and complex as we think to equip the new generation with tools to understand themselves and to share them wherever they're from. It's easier than what we actually think. And as soon as we start practice, practice saved me on my path because we all have a unique life path and we all go through different types of ups and downs. And I only teach it because it saved me. So as soon as people get a taste of safety, By the way, you know Abraham Maslow, the father of modern psychology? Apparently he studied with the Blackfoot community, and he looked at how they lived. And his pyramid, he almost presented another model to his colleagues because he was looking at how they lived, and he figured out, wait a second, we got this wrong in kind of modern society. There's a difference where the first base of the pyramid is food on the table, roof over your head. So yes, sense of safety. But one of his suggestions was that living with them and seeing how they lived, he would have replaced it with the word, what do you think? Yes. Community. You are so, yeah, we're so into it. We are co-regulating as we speak. Community. And there's an erosion of trust because there's an erosion of community. The Industrial Revolution changed everything, right? And there's a great age of displacement, yes, from within. And we see the external consequences. So the work is totally possible, and it's totally hopeful, and it's totally filled with human beings who are willing to make a difference.
We can give a loud round of applause, I think. I agree with that. I think what's also gives me a lot of hope at the moment is the tools that the younger generation have that we didn't have not so long ago. We're women of the world in this room. We know women whose husband always she was kind of dragging her down a bit. She, he seems to be kind of controlling. I don't know what's up there. We have language for that now. We know that's coercive control. We've all had friends, whose husband was very picky about how she was spending her money, and he wasn't sure. We know that's financial control, financial abuse. We have the words for this now. Chessie and I were saying yesterday, when we were teenagers, people said things like, yeah, so a guy came into my tent last night on the school camping trip and took my virginity. We know that's rape. And young people now, they've got the language. They're not kind of, lost and trying to figure out what all these things are happening. They know what's happening. And when you've got the language, you can take something on. When you've got the language, you can tackle it. The other thing that we have, which is, and I know that doesn't sound hopeful because I was talking about difficult things, but that is powerful. That is powerful. The other thing that I'm really excited by is the technology that people are able to develop quickly now. AI is a dangerous thing, but it is helping rapid innovation. And young people are more aware than ever of people's problems. So Miss Linda talked yesterday about plastic bottles. So I like to think sometimes the most toxic relationship in your life is not with a person, it's with plastic. And there's a One Young World ambassador, and as she was saying that, I thought it was kind of funny. I'd seen on our One Young World Instagram calendar, we were going to be posting a One Young World ambassador who'd come to the summit. He'd spoken about this new plastic he'd developed that biodegrades at the end of his lifetime. And we were doing a video about that, and I thought, oh, what a nice coincidence. So since yesterday, that video's had 1.5 million views. 15,000 people have followed his plastic company, and he is in the middle of Africa. And the ability for that young man to suddenly get international support for this thing that we all desperately need, that's hopeful, that's exciting, and that is community. Community doesn't have to be your next door neighbor. It's someone seeing something and going, okay, I'm gonna help make this happen. And what a wonderful thing that would be.
And that ties in perfectly with the next question I was going to ask you. We know that the biggest barrier is not talent, it's access to resources. Networks and capital, problems that are hard enough for adults to navigate.
Yes.
How do we help this next generation navigate those barriers?
It's such a good question, and one that we're troubled with a lot. So at the moment, we have about 700 scholarship spaces at One Young World every year where people get a full ride to come through our whole program. Last year, we had 70,000 applications for those spots. It makes Harvard look like a very easy route. And we do get applications. We've got 4,000 or 5,000 alumni here in America. We've got people in Europe. But actually, we get the most applications from emerging economies because there is no one giving us a chance to kids from Burundi. No one is bothering to help young leaders from Congo. And those young people, they're just as capable. They're just as innovative. They're just as smart. They're just as deserving of your kids, of our families. And thinking about how we are going to give these young people a shot. Because they run with it. You give them a little bit, and they will go so far. And I think about when you're on your young journey, and you do have all these dreams, big dreams, and you do have these hopes, and you do have a vision of how you want the world to be. When someone nudges you just a degree in the right direction, over a lifetime, that is an exponential journey. And so, really, I'm so thrilled that everyone's interested in this youth conversation. But please, the youth in your own lives, think about how you can nudge them. What is that one degree that you can change their journey forever?
Wow, you just said it all. I think really fully invest in the next generation. I mean, what I would say is that I will tell the room to stop waiting for proof before you invest. Because this is like this is what we see every single day. And for me as a young woman, I can tell you a bit of the story of like, when I came to the United States, I wanted so bad to go to school. And I was given the opportunity to go to high school. And then I was like, I want to go to college, but I have no money. So I wrote this essay to different universities. Basically, the essay said, I want to be educated, but I got no money. So... but hey, I want to make a difference in the world. If you want to invest in me. And I was so lucky that Wellesley College in Massachusetts gave me a full ride for 4 years. And that, to me, was like, wow, someone sees me, someone believes in me and in my potential. And that belief went beyond just one girl who they supported, and it went back, because I went back to the same refugee camp that I lived in as a child. And I was like, okay, I didn't get the opportunity to go to school in the refugee camp for 5 years. What was wrong with that? So I went back and found other young girls who are still living there with 4 primary school, 1 secondary school, 90,000 people. And there is no education beyond the primary level. And so I met with those young women who have so much dreams and hope about the future. And they're like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. And I'm like, okay. Because I didn't want to dream for them. I wanted them to dream for themselves. So I wanted to go back and ask them, what do they need? And sometimes, you know, they could not articulate they want education, but they said, I want to be a doctor. And so I was like, okay, to get there, we're going to start with education. And so today, you know, we just, you know, we began to support, of course, 60 students within the camp, and so they can finish primary school, you know, by, you know, providing some foods to the family so they can keep the girls in school and not in the farms, you know. And as they graduated this December, I was like, okay, what's next? There is no secondary school within the camp. So we had to establish a wraparound support outside of the camp where we have our residential home. We just brought 30 girls into our program and enroll them in secondary school and provide them with all the needs that they have. So this is just to say that people invested in me. And now I'm looking for people to invest in these girls whom I'm supporting. And to do so, it's been really a journey. And the honest part is that many foundations, many people have had this, you know, structure of like, we only support an organization that has been there for 20 years. Like, where is the proof? And so it's like, oh my gosh, like I have no luxury of time. Like, yes. So anyways, I just wanted to share that. And
Thank you. Well, and it's a wonderful example of how we show up alongside them. And that's really what we need to do. All of us in this room is we need to look at the young people in our lives and we need to say, how can we show up with them? How can we encourage them? How can we empower them? And how can they step up to lead? So the real question isn't whether they're ready, it's whether we are. Are we ready to share that power? Are we ready to invest and to trust more deeply in this next generation? I know at Women Connect for Good, we are. That's kind of our thing.
Yes.
That's what we're doing right now, which is, and I am excited to bring Claire Sakaoka up here to tell us a little bit more about what we're doing there.
Hello. It's really great to be here today. We are gathered in this amazing room as a community of leaders, advocates, and philanthropists who share a deep, unwavering commitment to empowering women and girls. We know that when we support one another, we can shift systems change culture, create a world where equity is reality. You pave the way every day through the work that you do, your giving, your leadership, everything that you're embodying. It is our belief in the power of community here today, together, and in the programs and the population we serve that led Dr. Nancy O'Reilly and our entire team here at Women Connect for Good, that we formed Connect for Impact. We conceptualized and created a leadership program for young people ages 16 to 20. We designed this 8-month leadership program to equip women with the tools they need to understand complex systems, amplify their voices, and drive real, measurable change. We want to show them that they hold the power to shape the future. Over the course of the program, each cohort dives into 7 hands-on modules and 10 leadership pillars. They learn the essentials of philanthropy, civic engagement, social justice, advocacy, activism, and storytelling. When we teach them the leadership pillars, it begins at the moment that they ask, "How can I help you?" That's the first question that we teach them to be curious about when they're working with individuals. We show them that courage scales faster when you do not have to be brave alone. We emphasize that data matters and that change starts and ends with facts. Most importantly, we help them bridge the gap between having a passion and taking concrete action. We want them to walk away with a clear blueprint to guide their next steps on their leadership journey. One of the most profound elements of Connect for Impact is our student-led giving circle. We do not just talk about philanthropy in theory, we put it into practice. We teach our emerging impact leaders that money is not power to hold, it's a tool to move change. To truly understand this, our students take the reins. They make the actual funding decisions that directly support gender justice work in the community. To make those critical decisions, our cohort needed a robust, reliable foundation to guide their research. And that's where the Giving List Women comes in. Yay! Our students use the Giving List Women as their core resource and foundation to select this year's grant recipient. They studied the incredible organizations featured within its pages. They used it to research different approaches to gender equity, evaluate community needs, and understand where their funding could make the greatest impact. The Giving List Women provided them with a master class in strategic philanthropy. It showed them what it looks like to center the voices of those closest to the issues and how to invest resources sustainably. Watching these young women use the Giving List Women to guide their giving has been nothing short of spectacular. They engaged in thoughtful debates. They asked the hard questions. They stepped fully into their roles as stewards of change. By trusting them with this process, we show them that their perspectives matter and they belong at the decision-making table right now. Today, we get to learn more about their experience and see the results of their hard work and dedication. This is where it gets really exciting. It is deeply inspiring to watch the next generation of women to step into their power, align their passion with purpose, direct resources toward causes that matter. They're not just leaders of tomorrow, they are leading today and already making measurable impact and difference. So if you're interested in playing a part in Connect for Impact, there are so many different ways you can get involved. You can be a mentor. Some of you, as you're sitting there, maybe even thinking of a young woman in your life that might be interested and benefit from a program like this. We are accepting applications still for our September cohort. And so I would encourage you to go check that out. You can talk to me later and I can help you find that application. But So they are not just leaders of tomorrow. They're leading today. And I keep gesturing over here because it's spoiler alert. I have 2 members of the cohort sitting over here. But so it is actually, it's my absolute honor to step aside and let them speak for themselves. Please join me in welcoming 2 of these phenomenal young impact leaders to the stage, where you'll hear from them directly, and then they will announce the recipient of this year's $10,000 grant. Chloe Irwin and Joanna Faucett, the floor is yours.
We're real. The young people were here in the flesh. But so many of y'all have met us over the last couple days and have been asking us, what is it that brings us here?
And a lot of you guys have asked, why are you here and why do you care?
And why are we so invested? Why do we spend our time at a wonderful place like this?
My name is Joanna. I am a first-year architecture student at Drury University, and I'm here today because Connect for Impact has given me the opportunity to speak to my values and turn them into action. I care so adamantly because I've experienced and borne witness to the injustices facing girls today.
My name's Chloe. I'm a freshman at the College of William & Mary studying economics, but I like to think of that as my how, whereas my why are what I would call my 2 biggest North Stars, which are advancing integrative conservation policy and practices around the world, as well as increasing female representation in the institutions, private and public, that shape our world. But we have to act now, and so my youth isn't a setback, it's something that I need to take advantage of, and I think that's one of the biggest things that Connect for Impact has taught me is that my youth is not a barrier to entry by any means, but an asset that I can use to my advantage to make the most change in my lifetime.
It was so humbling to hear from many impact leaders who, within their wisdom, have shaped the way we view leadership.
Dr. Nancy O'Reilly has generously given us the reins to learn by doing and to actually be the ones seated at the table making the change. And so we've been able to discern which organization we feel aligns most with our values of supporting women and girls, but also which one we're going to have the most impact in with our $10,000. So after months of research and RFPs, which we didn't know what that was until recently, but now we do, we were finally able to make a decision, which I could not be more excited about, especially given that it has been one of my personal favorites for a while.
We were really particularly drawn to this organization for their size, their influence, and their purpose.
So without further ado, we think it's best that we announce that our $10,000 grant will be going to Women's Economic Ventures.
And
So will you please
Nikki, please stand up and be
stand
recognized.
and be recognized?
Hey, Nikki.
You wanna?
Yes. Yes, please stay.
Unfortunately, we don't have an enormous check, but you get the idea. So that should be all from us. Thank you. Do you want to say something, or I mean, you don't have to. We didn't play for this. We were just excited.
I'm going to be completely inarticulate. So I just want to say thank you. I love that our mission calls to you as much as it does. I'm kind of curious why it calls to you as much as it does. But I just want to acknowledge enormous gratitude. Thank you so much.